Okay, good morning, everybody. So we had a slight technical issue yesterday, or Monday rather, when we did our final Go Productive with Celia into AI utilization, and maybe AI could have helped me on that morning. So we are needing to replicate essentially the Celia's session. So Celia is very kindly running through her slides and her presentation again for us, which is good. There are many people who attended, so I think this is actually extremely valuable that we are doing this so you can watch this back in your own time. For those who weren't there, Celia, we have known Celia in the Chamber for many, many years. And what is very interesting about Celia's journey to where she is now is that she has been a tremendous person to kind of learn sort of what's coming down the line, what's over in the other field. And she's a terrific learner of these things. So she started off as being the queen bee of LinkedIn, and then she's kind of moved further into this area. And it's really by her curiosity and her interest with this area that she has really absorbed and really become quite the expert on AI utilization. So it is our pleasure to have Celia here today and for her time to go through things. There are some questions which we both can remember that our audience asked on the Monday, so we will try and bring these in where appropriate. But essentially it is just Celia and myself here this morning. So I will now hand over to Celia. So thank you again, Celia.
My pleasure, Forbes, and it's absolutely fine to do this again. I just feel a little bit sorry for you for being subjected to that again, but I'm sure it will be fun. So as Forbes mentioned, I'm here to help on the AI productivity, and I'm going to link it with the previous sessions you had, specifically with the sales session, just to give you some very practical ways to go about it. But first things first, this is my absolute favorite quote. Jay Bear is a very well-known American marketer. And please replace the word marketer and add any professional from any industry. In fact, go ahead and add your own name, because then it really hits hard, because that's a hard truth for us. That's the problem. We keep doing things that AI can do faster, definitely faster than us. And if we learn to use AI correctly, in some cases, can do perhaps even better or even to our level. So that is the question, that's the quote that is going to underpin the information we are going to discuss today. And we're going to cover specifically three areas. We're going to discuss what does boosting productivity with AI actually look like with practical examples. And then I'm going to encourage you to create your very first AI workflow, which will include automation, because AI and automation are best friends. And finally, as is now that we are redoing the presentation, is the 1st of October, so we have entered Q4. So this is what we want to do in whichever level you might be at, whichever point in your AI discovery journey, then you can have a practical plan on what to do by the end of this year to stay ahead of the game. And as Forbes mentioned, there were lots of questions and activity in the chat, which we are going to cover. Quite a lot of it has registered up here. So I asked, we had about 21 professionals joining live on Monday, and I asked this question, and what I got one, I don't use AI, so someone in the team hasn't quite started their journey yet. And the other ones were mostly, I would say about 60–65% dabbling weekly. And a few were Bs, so including part of the daily work. The favorite tools, you're not going to be surprised if most people recorded ChatGPT, which is the front runner anyway of the big LLMs. Gemini and Claude, these were the three that people in this program use the most. And actually, that does reflect, from my experience and talking to other AI circles, primarily how people seem to be using AI practically. Just one point here. I know I'm mentioning here daily for work, but for those of you who may be hesitating and haven't quite started yet, I would say that perhaps an easy way to get started is to start using AI for your family life or for your personal life. Anything from I need to lose some pounds, can you give me a fitness regime? I'm organizing a party, I'm organizing a quiz night. So, this is a fun way to start playing with it so that you can start integrating into your work life.
There's one person that I know used it in the capacity of helping them plan their trip to South Africa and kind of
Excellent.
scheduling where we should go and things to kind of go and do. So, yes.
Absolutely fantastic. I love that. And you might be thinking, what is this doing here? Well, this is me in early, very few days of January 2023. That's how it felt like when a client of mine with whom I had worked on and off for a number of years, I had just finished before Christmas, I had just finished a project with him. ChatGPT was literally just launched. It was 5 weeks after having ChatGPT. He gives me a call and says, Celia, thank you very much for everything. I know we were going to do a little bit of work for later in the year, but it turns out I got all my answers from ChatGPT, and I just wanted to let you know, thank you, and I won't be needing your services anymore. And I like to say that I took it well, but in reality, it felt very much like that. I thought, oh my God, what is going on? And it was that moment. I've always enjoyed tech. And there were a couple of platforms in marketing, in content creation that started in 2020 along with the pandemic. I was a beta tester, I was using them, I loved them, but this was a completely different game. So it was at that point that I made my mission that I was going to discover for me first, and then for everyone I work with and help, how to integrate AI and how to use it productively, responsibly to accelerate the results. And I started training in February 2023. I thought even if I'm half a step ahead, I can show others what I've learned so far and what has happened from being the queen bee of LinkedIn, which I had been for many years. I started integrating AI on social media, in marketing, and then I started thinking about we need to be looking at AI adoption roadmaps, and I moved there. And finally, now I work with an AI engineer, data scientist, and we also deliver the agentic side of AI. So this is just to give you an idea. I'm not saying you follow my exact steps, but allow AI to come into your business and explore where that might take you. And this is my mission now to enable to become AI driven and accelerate the results, specifically in sales and marketing. Right. So since I started using it and ask me how I know, I noticed there are three spectacular mistakes we make in how we use AI. And I'd like to address them so that it ends today. You do not have to repeat these mistakes ever again. The first one is the shiny object syndrome. A lot of us are quite entrepreneurial. We have open minds. We look around what's happening. Perhaps we are scanning the market, and it's very easy to fall into this trap. If you're watching or following anyone online, It's a very standard clickbaity kind of headline. Oh, stop using ChatGPT. This is the new tool. This is what happened here. And it's constantly getting bigger and growing. Every week, in fact, at the end of the week, there is a place where you can go and see all the new AI tools. And there are a lot. We don't have to explore each and every one of them. So and if you have fallen into this trap, I certainly have, the remedy is to change your thinking and go into mastery and start deep diving. Because if it's a killer of productivity, number one, is to lose focus and spreading ourselves thinly. This is definitely not productive. And I think we all know that. Now, the other one, the other big spectacular mistake is looking for the answer. Let me give you a little bit of a scenario. You are in a rush, you have pressure to do something, to think something through. You're thinking, oh, I don't have time. I need to put something on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I need to send that email. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to just throw everything at Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and it will get me the answer. Then I'll be fine. So what happens is, I'm sure you've seen it. People say, oh, I know this doesn't sound like you, doesn't write like you. And once you start reading it, it sounds rubbish. So it's not the answer. It is, I mean, I know that it plays a role to be using it as an accelerated search engine. And that's fair enough. But the real magic, the shift that happens in unlocking productivity and intelligent acceleration results is when you stop using it as the answer and start thinking this is a bot, MBA educated, PhD level, who walks by my side and can collaborate with me. I would teach it things about my company. It knows nothing about my company. And the way I always describe it is if you are sitting down having a coffee with a team or with your partners or with your peer group, AI is another brain at the table. So if you start using it like that, you're going to get a lot more out of it. And finally, this is, I've been laughing about this word. Stanford University releases an AI report every few months. And along with Harvard Business Review, they came up with this new word. There is a new AI vocabulary, by the way, called work slop. And what that means is AI generated work that we submit to our colleagues, to our boss, to our clients, to our partners even, and it looks good. It appears polished, but then when you start reading it, you start thinking, huh, I have no idea what that is actually saying. So the work is actually quite sloppy and superficial, and it wastes people time. And also, you don't need me to tell you that it starts to erode trust on you and your capabilities. So rather than the slap bam approach, I would say again, my view on this is always look for meaningful integration. Try to isolate the noise and it's a lot of noise around us, and think anyone can produce now sloppy work that looks polished. Let's go a level deeper because that's where the magic is. And that led me to think that we need to adopt an AI mindset. And I like to encourage you, let me move me around a bit. I like to encourage you, if these resonate, to adopt them into your own work life. And my approach is this: playful curiosity. It is about being curious and it is about being playful, which is why I suggested earlier that for those of you who might be hesitating and haven't quite started yet, start with a fun way, as Forbes suggested. Plan what better way to ask a Claude or ChatGPT to plan your holiday in South Africa. Amazing. So embrace that joy and allow yourself to feel the joy of all the wonderful things that AI can do, image generation and video generation. So play for curiosity is my number one operating principle for this new AI mindset.
Can I just want to chip in here, because the playful curiosity, it is, I don't think you can underrate that element to it. And I just want to share a quick example. This is that I was working on a large report the other week, and there's a series of quite text-heavy data charts, and for a designer, they're basically embedded in a Word document. So I'd have to retypeset the whole thing again. I was thinking, oh geez, this is gonna take at least 45 minutes to rekey it in, and I'm not necessarily the best typist. And I just thought, oh, I know. I wonder what happens if I drop this chart into ChatGPT. And I had no idea what it was. I didn't think it. I had no idea if it was going to work or not. And I sort of said, can you please convert this chart and all the text boxes and everything else into a text format? And I just thought, got no idea. Put it in. Within 30 seconds, 15 seconds, it kind of just listed it all out. And I went, oh my goodness, that has saved me at least 45 minutes of keying in, checking, it spell checked it, job done. And that was just purely, I wonder if this will work. Lob it in, and it worked. And that's that just curiosity element of, as I said, being playful with it. But my goodness, it saved me a good 45, 50 minutes. So for the rest of the document, throw it in, throw it in, throw it in. And it worked. It was great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great example, and that's the ultimate thing, which is why I mentioned earlier that one of the mistakes is to think is the answer, and being rushed, and allow yourself time to play with it. Nothing can go wrong. Obviously, you need to check afterwards, but try it, give it a go, see what happens. The second operating principle that I think is important for us to adopt is grounded optimism. I'm optimistic by nature, but it would be irresponsible to ignore some serious concerns that there are around AI. Many of them, we could mention a few more towards the end, but anything from data usage, is it using your data for training? How about the sustainability element, the hacking side of things? There is a lot to be concerned about. So that's why I think we need to be grounded in our optimism for the future of AI. And human-led, you probably heard the phrase human in the loop. So we are the ultimate supervisor, if you like, and we have a lot of minions, which are our little AI tools, and we organize them and they talk to each other, and then we supervise exactly what is happening. We are at the core, it's a human-centric approach, and human-led for me also means that we do not delegate one of the most important skills in this new era that we are facing, which is critical thinking. We do not delegate critical thinking. We are not there to just push the buttons for AI to do things. We are there to assess critically what needs to happen. So if you think that these work for you, they resonate, start thinking of AI along this way, and spread the word. So what are we going to discuss very specifically now? We're talking about productivity here. And I think the important thing is to identify, and when you watch the video from your office or at home, I would encourage you to pause here for a couple of minutes, even more if you need to, and start listing all these repetitive tasks, the tasks that are taking longer than they should, or simply the tasks that you don't like doing. Maybe you don't feel you're particularly good at it, or you just don't like doing a particular task. And guess what happens? We all know what happens. If you don't like doing something, then very quickly enough, you stop it. So let's think it through. Now, I asked this question, and the chat blew up, Forbes, on Monday. There were lots and lots of comments. So some of the comments were these: I'm doing a lot of contracts. I need to be able to find a way to manage this process more efficiently. Not surprisingly, there were a lot of comments and blockages around social media. How can I create my social media calendar? How can I start creating a plan for my post? How do I generate ideas of what to write online on social? There were things like market insights. I think Richard said market insights. How do I stay on top of the trends that are happening in my sector, in my industry? And all of these are excellent ideas. So please pause here and start listing. And I would have 3 columns. That's how I would visualize it. In fact, why don't you do that with ChatGPT? Say, can you help me identify? I'm on a mission to boost my productivity. And you are a productivity expert. You say to Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini, I would like to create 3 lists: repetitive, time consuming, I don't like. Can you help me? Can you give me some ideas? And can you list these in table format? So ChatGPT doesn't create Excel spreadsheets, but it can create something in a table format, as you probably saw, Forbes, which you can then copy paste. So let's identify again how that looks like practically, and also your first objective. So your first objective is to start saving 2 hours per week, every week, week in, week out. So that will be around 1 day per month. So for instance, Forbes, to use your example, you decided to be curious. You played with a particular task. It saved you 45 minutes. You're nearly there. So there must be other tasks that we all do. I mean, definitely they are. So that's the first objective. You know, we are not looking for you to just have your feet up and do nothing all day. We are just saying, okay, the first objective is 1 day per month. Once you have this, the key word here is consistently. Consistently. So when you find ways to consistently achieve that, imagine having 1 extra day a month to do prospecting, identify, qualify the best clients, or even to spend time with your family, enjoy your hobbies, whatever that may be for you. It's quite amazing. Once you have secured that and it happens month in, month out, then your objective will be to double it. And I can assure you that from that point on, it takes off. It acquires its own momentum, and off it goes. Yes.
Thank you, Celia. There's 2 points. One which, and maybe we might be about to go on to it, but there's 2 quick questions. One from myself and one which was raised a little bit earlier. The conversations which we're talking about now, there is one is a kind of how we actually talk to ChatGPT or to a platform. And then the second one is essentially, we're now talking about using paid models, aren't we?
Yes.
But the first one, we've had conversations with you, and it's quite interesting how it is. I know you mentioned it a little bit later, but ChatGPT can be a bit of a kind of a people pleaser. So you kind of have to kind of challenge it a little bit. But there's an element of, it's a strange wee beast that sometimes actually it responds if you are courteous, if you say please, thank you. It does tend to warm up if you converse with it in the way that we would be conversing with each other. So that's the first observation. But the second thing, which is probably more important to everybody here, is the different models. Is it appropriate to just kind of catch up? Because I think Catherine asked that question about that. Is that the right time to talk about this?
Yes, of course it is the right time. So we have two questions. The one is prompt engineering, and the other one, how do we go about choosing the models? So before I show you the next workflow, let me address the latter question. At the moment, there are three big boys in LLMs, in the large language models: ChatGPT, Gemini by Google, and Claude by Anthropic. ChatGPT is considered the most powerful one, only by a little bit. Now, there are organizations and universities that test them nearly all the time. I would say probably on a weekly basis. They test their performance and they compare them. And what you will find, the results tend to vary a bit. First of all, the one observation is that they're all quite close to each other. We are not talking big differences here. And when a particular company releases a new model, or then it can go ahead. You don't need to worry about any of that. I'm just giving it to you as a quick background. For us, non-technical professionals and entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if in the latest scoring, Claude ranked #1 on XYZ. We are talking about such subtle differences that they won't be noticeable unless you're looking, excuse me, for a particular project. So what I would say is this: ChatGPT at the moment, and I'll use quite a few examples with ChatGPT, is a bit ahead. It was the first one. It is a little bit ahead. I actually think it's an excellent starting point. Now, if you are in the Google ecosystem, so if you pay for Google Business, Google Workspace, then it might be worth looking at Gemini, which is also very powerful. Now, depending on what you want to do, you will hear me say in a few moments that Claude, I personally find, and it's not just me, it's much better at writing. It's a little bit more sophisticated. So if you are looking for writing projects to help you, then you may want to go towards Claude. ChatGPT, again, writes well, but I find it needs a lot of prompting. Now, in order to save the 2 hours per month, 1 day per month, folks, you're absolutely right. We need to be moving to the paid models. The challenge we face with the free models is that nothing is really free. They're using your data. Be aware of that. You are faced with limitations. You're in the middle of a project, you have started, you're thinking, you're on fire, and then it says, oops, you're out of tokens, come back later. That is not very good for business. So I understand that if you are a weekly user, as I asked before, and about 60-65% of the people said they are, then that won't affect you. But the name of the game here is consistency. So I would encourage you to go for the paid models. It's only $20 per month across the board, all three of them, very similar pricing. If you think about it, it's not £18. It's not a lot of money for what they can do. So hopefully I answered this question. So pick one, understand it well, zoom in, focus, and move to the paid model as soon as possible for you. Is that okay? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely grand. That's absolutely grand. And I think what's valuable there in particular is to try and, to all of us, to envisage what exactly are we looking for it to do. And I think if you're leaning towards more sculptured, carefully worded kind of reporting or feedback, then Gemini might be a very practical one. But again, I think it does sound really kind of quite affordable in the context of how you start engaging with it. And as you said, I think you said the other day, it's kind of 18, if it's sort of say £16 these days, sadly, that's the equivalent of probably 3.5 coffees. So
Yes.
it really is, it is quite, and a little bit more functional than 3.5 coffees.
A lot more. Yes, I like to joke about my flat white mini addiction, but you know what? It's not really a joke. If you add how much money I'm spending on flat whites, it's a lot more than $20 a month, and I get a lot more out of this. Now, prompt engineering, which was your first question, I think is incredibly valuable. We're not diving into prompt engineering, but I'm happy to spend a little bit of time talking about it. What I suggest I do, folks, is I move to the the next workflow, and as I do that, I can talk a little bit about prompt engineering. Is that all right? Okay, excellent. Thank you. So that if there is one word out of all of this is the consistency. You want to be consistently saving 2 hours per week. That's the key point. Now, a lot of us spend time in meetings. Most of us are, sometimes even drowning in meetings. And meetings, we if we all of us find a nice way to put AI and a bit of automation in practice, these 2 hours a week that I mentioned, you're going to find that you're going to get there very quickly. So I like to show you how that might look like. And I have two workflows, a very simple one as a starting point, and then I like to add another one, which is a little bit more complete. Now, you may or may not be using recorders, AI note takers. In fact, we had, folks, AI note takers joining our Zoom session a couple of days ago. So Fathom is an excellent AI note taker. It's free. It does absolutely phenomenal things. I have been using it for a long time. It records the meeting. It transcribes. It pulls out action items. And through their AI assistant, you can search for particular things. So the other day, I had an hour-long meeting with someone, and I know they mentioned the name of a person I want to be talking to, only I promptly forgot that name. So I went in and I said, who is the person that Sarah mentioned who does that? And it pulled up their name immediately. And then I jump on LinkedIn and find them. So how much time did I save? First of all, I concentrate on the meeting. I don't have to take notes as I used to frantically take a lot of notes. But then what is the point of having the meeting is to write a follow-up email to your client, or it could be for your internal team. So what we want to do here is use Zapier, however it's pronounced. It's an automation tool. You don't have to do anything. You don't need to be a developer yourself. It has a menu, effectively, of pre-prepared little hooks, as web hooks, as they call them. So it works very well with Fathom. So what you want to do is to say, can you please put the meeting notes straight as a draft email into my Gmail or my Outlook if you are a Microsoft user. How useful would that be? Saving a lot of time, a lot of time. Now, a couple of things based on experience. There are settings here. I would not send things automatically after the meeting because you may have to make some changes and it can create a lot more work because it happened to me and that was not pleasant. I spent a lot of time trying to fix it afterwards. So I would not send, don't go wild with automations. That's what I'm saying. There is an option to send automatically. Please don't do it. And then you can decide from the menu here in Zapier whether you want to be sending a summary of the actions, or you want to send the link to the actual video as well. So you can decide how would you like that to look like. So the whole idea behind AI is that we don't have to do everything from scratch. That's different. The big difference. We don't have to write and remember and look at our notes. We can get something which is 60, 70%. And then we spend quality time where it really matters to finish off that email to a client or a colleague in the right way. And a more advanced version of this workflow is this. A lot of us use Calendly. Again, I'm using it because it's free. Calendly, now we have a new etiquette that we have to be adopting, all of us now, to be considering for our business. And the new etiquette, for example, is if you are going to record a meeting, you probably want to let people know in advance. To make sure that they are comfortable with it. If they're not comfortable, they can let you know immediately and you can turn it off. Now, this new etiquette can be done easily through Calendly because it sends reminders that you customize so you can let them know. Calendly obviously works very well with Zoom. It's the optimum integration, I would say. So you have the meeting in Zoom like we're having now. Fathom is in the background. I know we're not using it today, but Fathom is in the background. It's recording, it's doing its thing. Then Zapier, and now not only do you create a draft email straight to your inbox, but you also want to save the details of that meeting in a particular folder straight onto, so nice, tidy, productive workflow. I love this workflow. Now, I have another option here, which is Zoom AI Companion. Zoom AI Companion instead of Fathom can also be used, but you have to have a Zoom paid account that not many people do, which is why I'm suggesting Fathom, because the top sequence is actually free to use. So this is a workflow that got people excited when we delivered this live, for a couple of days. A lot of hands went up when I asked, do you think this will be useful? And people went, yes, 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 and yes again. This is something you can do by the end of the week. So if you want to break it down, because I like the step-by-step process. So I would say initially do this 1, 2, 3, work through that, and then deliver the more complete workflow. Because once you do that, then it will be there for all your meetings going forward. So even if you have 2 meetings per week, I think most of us have more than 2 meetings, but let's say you have only 2 meetings a week. Would it not probably take you about half an hour to do all of that, to write the email and la, la, la? There you go. You are halfway through your weekly productivity objective. And is that something you see yourself, Forbes, perhaps incorporating in the chamber?
It sounds very, yeah, yes. I mean, we are always looking at sort of those kind of incremental changes like that, because it actually would free up a lot of time. And yes, that's, yeah, no, it sounds very attractive. I think I'm not the most technical person, so I probably need to absorb it and understand it to sort of go through it. But I think the likes of Rob and Alona, I think, yes, it would make a huge difference. And there's a lot of those automated. There's always that balance, isn't there? I mean, it's the workflow thing. That's great, but I think there's also that sort of needing to trust that that's working well. And I think it's kind of, we tend to get, well, I tend to get kind of, have I done it? And relying on myself rather than necessarily a system and a workflow doing it.
Yes.
Even the case of this is why we're here today, is because I clearly didn't get the button to work properly. So, but I think yes, I can see that it could make a significant time difference, which is good.
Yes, and I think you touched upon two important things to flesh out. The one is to trust the system. And you know, as I mentioned in the third operating principle for the AI mindset, it is human led. So part of the workflow is also to decide at which points of the workflow you would like a human to be a human in the loop. So at which point do you want, beyond testing it initially, which we always have to test again and again, at least 3 times to make sure it's working, but also to decide that, you know what, at this point here, for example, I will be checking that is doing the right thing. Or you may want to be checking at the draft email point. So that's part of the exercise. And then that increases the trust level. And the other point you mentioned is that, yes, all of these lead to productivity if and only if we invest a bit of learning time at the beginning. And unfortunately, there isn't a magic button to make it, you know, to make it all happen. You have to give to receive. It's a universal principle. Who knew it applies to AI as well? So anyone who is putting this into action, I would love to know how you're getting on with this. Send me a quick message on LinkedIn and say, yes, I've done it. Hopefully it works well. So, and it will eventually, for sure. Now, the other big productivity gain is custom GPTs. And this links quite nicely to the question you asked earlier, Forbes, and Catherine asked the question, which one to choose? One of the reasons that ChatGPT is a bit ahead is this idea of the custom GPT. And what is it? So within ChatGPT, you have a particular task-specific program that you customize as you wish. And there are the way they work, it's like an app store, the app store on a smartphone. So you go in and a lot of big recognizable names like Canva, for example, have their own official GPTs with the view of helping you, if you're also using Canva, to help you learn to use Canva better and keep you within their ecosystem. So it's an educational tool, it's also a marketing tool. So these are public GPTs, but you can have private GPTs, which you can only see, you or your team can see, and nobody else. And these are the ones I'm talking about here that you can use to deliver specific things that are repeatable and save you a lot of time. Who can create them? And this is where the paid accounts come in. It's a big benefit of the paid account in OpenAI that only paid users can actually create them. Everyone, however, has access to them. So if you are on the free version and like to explore a little bit about the GPTs, go to the GPT store and start playing around. Now, how secure are they? I would treat them as sensitively, as sensitive because they have been known to leak data. So the objective here is not to ask them to do very sensitive things. Like you would not upload a database of your clients with their names and their emails. That's not the objective. I will give you some examples so you can start visualizing. You don't need to worry though if you want to use it as an RSS feed and pick up the news in your industry every day. for example. That doesn't matter if it gets leaked. So what? You're reading about what's happening in your space. So they have it's very micro, even nano task specific, and they integrate well with Zapier, which can create an automation, and that is also quite useful. So I'm going to give an example very specifically. We have a couple of estate agents in the program. So for example, what is repetitive? You may remember earlier, I asked you to pause and start listing what are the repetitive tasks. What is it that's taking too too long to do? You shouldn't be spending so much time, but you end up doing it. So for estate agents, what is their big repetitive task? Is the listings. Listings that they have to be different in format. Different platforms they might be using, they may have different word count. It might be a long listing, it might be a short listing. You may want to emphasize different things. So you have one listing with 3,000 different variations. Now that is a big productivity drain. So what if you could find and create your own, find a way and create your own GPT to make that process easier? So first we have to set, and this process, though the example is for estate agents, the steps are relevant for everyone. So we need to be quite specific. What do we want it to do? If you keep it too broad, the likelihood is you're not going to get very good results. So this one, we're taking a slither of the activity and we're saying this is about listings. And then we upload as much information as we possibly can. Documents, examples, and I'd like to highlight the examples here. And that links to prompting, by the way, Forbes. Whenever we want to even write something or give an idea, if we have an example, either of something that we have written or somebody else has written, and we like the way they go about it, we want to upload it onto ChatGPT. So here you may already have documents as an estate agent that may have location codes, default transportation information for the areas you cover, examples of previous listings that you thought they worked quite well. Any of all of that, you can give them your website, you can give them you have the paid version, remember, so it can search the internet live for you. GPT can with a paid version. And then finally, to be very specific on the output. Again, long, short listing. This is what I want to have. It needs to have, a house map. It needs to say this. This is the format. I also want social captions. So what am I going to say on social? I want email caption, whatever it is, that it's incredibly repetitive. So this is a no code option. You go on to custom GPT and the screen is split in two, and on the left hand side you start giving information and it starts creating the little program just for you. And then it will say, look, I created it. You're going to have to wait a little bit. It's not that fast. Well, only a couple of minutes, that is. And then it will say, can you test it and let me know? So you test it, you go back. Okay, I think you need to work on this. So then once you test it, and for something like that, for a project like this, realistically, I think you're going to devote a couple of hours initially. This is what we talked about. You have to invest a bit of time to get the rewards back. I would say easily a couple of hours, and then you test it and you put it into practice. And what you can do is not a static program. As you go along and you use it and you think, okay, I need to add this in the information. You go back and say, you also need to be doing X. So we can all have things like that in our business. So, for example, there was a question about contracts. Now, contracts are sensitive, so I wouldn't put specific information, but most likely you have a template. If you don't have a template, you can work with Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini to create a template. So the contract needs to say this. You have perhaps some pre-populated areas. Again, think 60, maybe 70%. So then what you can do, it could work like this. We have the meeting workflow. You've captured the meeting, you have the transcript, you have the summary, and then from the transcript, you can remove any names, obviously, and any specific information. And then you can say, can you, so you choose what to feed, you feed it in and say, can you convert this conversation into a draft contract? So again, it saves you about 60% of the time, and then you do the rest. And this is something that can be done. You can have a lot of fun with GPTs, anything repetitive, and the RSS feeds is some of the things that I use. For example, I would like to stay informed about the big changes in the AI space. And my goodness, there is something happening every minute of the day. So that can be very overwhelming. So I created a GPT and I said, I'm only looking for reliable sources. I don't want it to pick up anything that moves from the internet, God forbid. I've given it a list of examples of sources that I like to read. And I said, you need to prioritize news from these sources. And then, so I have limited what I want to do. So I go in every day. I spent a bit of time working on it. I would say probably about an hour, because I was playing with it as well. That it didn't take long. So I go in every day and I play click on the GPT and it produces a list of sources which I can scan very quickly. So that's another example. So think through what might be there that you can use as a repetitive task to help you with the work that you are doing. Right. So let's look and explore a bit more the prompt engineering side of things. We all need to understand prompt engineering. And in fact, the bots can help you with that. What works really well is when we assign a role to the tools. So this is for custom GPTs, but it works for Claude, Gemini, and the main GPT. So we are saying you are, and you can start elaborating, a world-renowned expert in branding, let's say. You are a very experienced business advisor specializing in audio industry. So you start describing what is the role, that's part of it. You then define practical things. As you probably know, these tools write in American English, very annoying, but you can correct that. You can correct that. So keep saying, and the free versions, it's not really going to happen. They're starting to have a little bit of memory, but the paid versions, you have projects, so you can group together some of your chats that are towards a specific project, and then you can put specific project instructions, which is very helpful and saves a lot of time. You can also say, don't put in any M dashes. I don't want to go into that too much, but you've probably picked up, it's a telltale sign that they use the M dashes. The annoying thing is that I used to use them quite a bit before ChatGPT, and now I'm having to say, don't use them, please. What can you do? Anything, never invent facts. you can see, I have this here tried. If you don't know the answer, if you don't know something, just say you don't know. Don't lie. And if you think you've lied, tell me. It's obeying instructions most of the time. So be quite specific, and you can always ask it to review and analyze its own work. Another question that I get quite a bit, by the way, so this is for an example for estate agents. I'm not an estate agent, so I work with ChatGPT to give some ideas. I'm not suggesting that they are necessarily super correct. They look okay, but is to give you ideas of how to go about it, creating it. Another thing, Forbes, I wanted to mention, which I get quite a bit, is how do I know, where are you pulling the information from? A lot of people are wondering. Okay, you're giving me some facts, or perhaps you're giving me an opinion, or perhaps you're analyzing something. Apart from the general training data, what else are you doing? One of the things I do with my interactions, I always ask for sources. So I always say, if you have to look at the internet, you are only going to look for reliable, legit sources, and then you are going to list them. So if you look at my conversation with ChatGPT, now even during the chat, it actually has brackets with a link that I check. So this is one of the reasons to avoid hallucinations. You can avoid them completely, but there are ways to minimize them. So there are all these little tricks that we have to be aware of when dealing with ChatGPT. Do I see a question coming from you, Forbes? No, all good?
I'm on mute as well. No, that's all very clear. I think those are great examples which you just listed there. So no, that's grand. Thank you, Celia.
Okay, excellent. So the next one is, I asked, and this is the point in the video where you actually put this into practice. So please pause the video here, think through what are my repetitive tasks, and decide one ChatGPT, one little thing that you can create today. And yes, you're going to need a paid account to do that. They don't lock you into annual subscriptions. You can subscribe for a month when you're ready. And if it doesn't work for you, which I will find hard to believe, but if it doesn't work for you, you can say no to the month after. So the exercise, the homework, is to decide what will be the first GPT. And again, let us know how that goes. It will be fun to see what people are creating. Now, this is wow. I mean, this is a very, very powerful workflow. Very powerful workflow. Because a lot of companies, we all need clients. We need good quality clients. And the question is, how on earth do we find them? There are different ways. They could come in. There is word of mouth. There's networking. All of these are good ways, but they're not reliable ways in the sense that it can work 1 month, it may not work on the other. And this is one of the big challenges you face, and we all face if we are micro businesses or even solopreneurs. This upside down, the roller coaster cycle, the good month, no leads, bad month, and it goes like this. So there are ways to address this. And this is one of them. And it works extremely well. It does need a little bit of investment in time to put it in practice, but let me explain how that might work. Now, when we're looking for leads, this works beautifully for B2B. We normally go to Sales Navigator, which connects with LinkedIn. A lot of the B2B people are on LinkedIn, so it's a good place to start. If you've ever used it, then you would know it has some particular challenges. One of them is that it's a bit expensive. It's £80 a month, which is quite a bit. The second one is that once you decide to stop using it, then you lose your data because it's a different platform to LinkedIn. It's not linked to your profile. So all the work and the research and the list you've built all of a sudden goes. And if you keep using it, another difficulty is that you can't export the lists and the data. LinkedIn does not allow it. You will probably find some tools that claim they do that. This is data scraping. It's illegal in terms of LinkedIn's terms and conditions, and you could lose your LinkedIn account permanently. So let's not do that. Let's not do that. Another way to find and source data is with Lasha. Now, Lasha has been around for a few years. It's not AI, though they claim they have AI elements, but effectively it links with the Mint database. This is the central corporate limited company database in the UK. It gets updated frequently, and you can use it for free to test, I think, up to 50 contacts, I believe, in a particular industry. And it gives you names, emails, and telephone numbers in some occasions. And then you can start your cold outreach. So Lasha is a good way of looking at the data. It has monthly accounts. I think it's about $49 a month, I want to say. And you can decide how long to use it. Now, once you have a list and you are looking, just bear with me for a moment. You want to understand what we don't want to do. One of the reasons where cold outreach fails, we have all been at the receiving end of it, and it's a generic message that could be sent to anyone, doesn't resonate, doesn't click with me. I have no idea what you're saying. So it goes over my head. I delete. I could even block you. I'm not interested. We don't want to do that because with AI now you can go deeper and personalize. The more you personalize the cold outreach, we know the more successful it's going to be. How do you personalize? Well, a couple of ways. First of all, you go to Perplexity. Perplexity is a search engine, much better than Google. And it allows you, so put in names of particular companies or even in a particular industry and start asking questions. What happened in this industry? Has the particular company, have there been anything in the news about them that you need to be aware of? Have they been merged with somebody else? What's happening in their industry? What's the bigger trends or news items that might be a pain point for your prospect? So you want to understand your prospects environment first at the company level. But then companies don't buy themselves, they buy through people. So you need to dive into individual buyers, I meant to say. So there will be a number of buyers and influencers and buyers. What if you were to know in advance what's their preferred style of communication? Wouldn't that be useful in terms of how you approach them? We all know from various personality testings, and we've met people who are very dynamic, very impatient. The ideal email sent to them is probably about 3-4 words. One line, that's it. Get to the point straight away. They see a long email, they don't read it, they delete it. They just don't have time for this. Would it not be useful to know this, that your buyer perhaps is in this category and will respond better to a clever one-liner?
In the sales presentation last a couple of weeks ago, Richard was very specific, was very kind of particular in terms of trying to know your audience, and that very specific thing is, do they want the short email? Do they want a little bit more? What's the tone of it? And I think increasingly, I think both of us have suffered from an incredibly long email. And it's just like, we don't need all the answers. We need to have the very specific, what's the point? What's the action plan? What's the benefit? So I think it's less is always a little bit is more. But yes, again, it's to do a little bit of homework. You can't just send it out there.
Yes, and it's about personalization. We know personalization works, but before AI, it was far too costly. Far too costly. How on earth do you needed a lot of people to get that, and simply you just didn't have the time. So Crystal knows. I'll jump live on Crystal to explain that. It gives you the sense of the buyer, and then you go to Claude or your preferred writing assistant. As I mentioned, I think I personally find Claude to be more nuanced in writing, and I like it more than ChatGPT. So with all of this information, what's happening in the company level, who is the buyer, then you give this information to Claude and say, right, can you please now write a cold email or 3 to 5 messages on LinkedIn, DMs on LinkedIn that will resonate to this particular person. You don't have to name the person, obviously, you just the characteristics. How powerful would that be? I look at my DMs, I look at my email, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, hello, they know something, they have something of value to offer. Incredibly powerful. I'd like to show you, yes, before I give you the prompts, actually, let me see. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. No, actually, I'm going to jump here. I'd like to explain a little bit how, okay, can you see my Crystal Knows account, folks? Yes, you can. Thank you very much. So effectively, just to show you, Crystal allows you to assess 10 profiles for free. So please use them for your own prospects. It connects with LinkedIn. It has an extension and it goes on to their LinkedIn profiles. And from that, effectively, it tries to assess based on the DISC profiling system where you might belong. And it gives you something like that. And then it would say email. It can be a lot more specific than that. So it gives you a sense. So how to write an email to Celia, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, if I were read, for example, because I think that's a good one, the super impatient, always in a rush people, it would say, make it very short. Just make it very short. If I were an analyst, a blue personality, some of my clients are analysts in AI, it says the email has to be long, thorough, well documented, and you need to explain yourself very, very well. So you need to adjust in terms of how people prefer. So your chances of having a response go up tremendously. So that is the value of AI. So I'm going to open up my presentation again very quickly. To show you now, we're going to look at prompting again, folks. Let me jump to the right spot. Right, so we covered this. So that is the flow. In fact, one of our attendees had a very good question, which was, can we also use automation between these steps? And the answer is yes, you can use automation. You can, Perplexity, same thing as ChatGPT and Claude. It has a pro account, again, $20 per month. And the difference is that the volume of research goes up dramatically. And they've started introducing just a little bit of advertising in the free account. You won't necessarily need the pro account on Perplexity unless you are at the stage where you're doing massive research for your audience. And then you can turn it off. So yes, you can use automation step by step, testing it. Let's look at some other ways to start looking for trade associations, which was one of the questions we had from one of the attendees. Another way to go about it, Gemini by Google has launched Deep Research. It's an amazing tool. It's Google search on steroids, like on mega steroids. So again, the prompting side of things, you are saying you are conducting research, ask it to walk you through the process is going to follow. So you can human-led approach. You want to make sure that you can follow the thinking and also you can correct at the beginning. Authoritative directories, authoritative websites, that's a good word to use. Then define the output. I'd like you to create this, that, and the other. Find the LinkedIn URL, the website URL. You can also ask it to narrow down to specific areas. So trade associations, you may not want to start with something which is in Scotland if you're based in Kingston. You may want to focus on home counties, for example, London and home counties. So this gives you a sense, it's not the ultimate prompt, but a good starting point for you to start building it. Then you jump to Perplexity. So then you say, list the 5 London-based trade associations. It may well be that you select at a wider industry or sectors, and then ask it to give you any information. Have they been in the news? Again, that's a useful one. Have they won any awards, for example? TAF, the Trade Association Forum, which manages all the trade associations, they do annual awards, for example. So you may want to link your campaign around that. Probably a good way of doing it. So all of that research comes from Perplexity. And as I mentioned, Kristen knows it's not cheap. It's not cheap. After the 10 free profiles, you have to buy an annual, I think it's about $50 a month. So it's a good chunk of money. But if you're selling high ticket items, it's all relative, isn't it? So if you're selling high ticket items, then that might be quite useful for you to do. Now, before we go into Q4, were there any other questions from you folks at all?
No, you've answered the, we've looked at what to buy, the free models, the compatible teams. No, that seems fine. I think what was interesting just on that previous slide was, as you said, it was about the subscriptions with Crystal in terms of it being for a yearly amount. And I guess that's where a lot of them really try to tie you in, is that you can't just kind of grab what you want at the beginning and then go. They're basically trying to hook you in for the whole of that period. I recently did a very interesting, I chaired London's local chambers, and I actually wanted to ask ChatGPT, and now listening to what you've said, I might use a different platform to look at other sort of chambers just beyond, outside of London towards the coast, somewhere around the M25 area. And what I found very interesting is that when I wanted it to list the chambers around London, there were several, but it kept missing out. It wouldn't mention Merton for some particular reason. Only when I flipped a certain question round did it show up. So I thought that was actually really interesting, thinking, gosh, why? So there are some imperfections with it. And I was really struck by that actually to me, of course, Merton, they're doing this, they do that, and everything else. And I was curious as to why it wouldn't pick it up in one kind of line of questions. It picked it up in another way of asking a question. And I thought that that was actually really kind of quite, I didn't understand that.
Yes, that's an interesting one. May I ask whether you were using the free version of ChatGPT?
Oh, of course.
Yes, okay. So no, that's absolutely fine. So what I would suggest, you may want to go to Gemini Deep Research, Deep Search. That you probably get better results. However, it's a good point you're saying. Why did it pick it up here and not there? The free version is not as powerful as the actually you've given me a little exercise actually, Forbes, thank you for adding to my task list for today.
Oh, really?
I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that as well. I'm going to try, what are the chambers in London home counties, or maybe the south, neighboring Kingston or something like that, to see whether it picks it up. So sometimes it has to do with the way we ask the question. And I like to highlight that bit because a lot of people say, well, if we all ask the same thing, are we going to get the same answer? And the answer to that is no, you're not going to get exactly the same answer. You may get some principles of the answer which are the same, because we all have different ways of asking our questions. So it reads your specific question. That's number one. And the other one, which is an entire session on its own, is now we need to be thinking as if we didn't have a lot to do in our marketing and digital marketing. We also now need to be thinking discoverability of our website and online presence via the bots, via the LLMs, which is a slightly different exercise. So we're not going to go into that, but there is this thing of now also considering how do we used to think, how do I appear in Google search? We now need to add on to that, how would I appear, if at all, in a ChatGPT conversation? Which is quite fascinating, actually. It's a very interesting one. So the only thing I can think of on this occasion that you were using the free version, and secondly, it's the way you phrased the question didn't create the right trigger in the machine.
Yes, and which makes me again goes back to the points that you do need to know your subject reasonably. You need to know your subject reasonably well in the first place. So if I only took the content from the first generation, the first draft or so, and there was a couple of drafts when it just wouldn't show up Merton, I would have been none the wiser, and you could have presented it saying, here we are, here's the information, and somebody said, well, where's Merton? And I go, oh, and so again, it's just, you do need to know a certain amount. And also, I think it's, as you said, I think if you need to go into the paid format, then it's a more comprehensive scraping of the internet, basically, which will give you that information. So I thought that was, it was quite enlightening to me. That was thinking, even on you can't depend on a free version to give you the answers which you think it is readily available. So pardon me, so
Yes.
I'll let you be. I'm conscious of timing as well.
Of the time. We have a few more minutes. So there are a couple of things I'd like to address before we wrap it up.
Thank you, Celia.
This workflow, because we did have this question, is very effective for B2B. But there was a question from Liz regarding a specific audience that she has, which is council officers. So how on earth can we find council officers, and can AI help with that search? So what I'd like to say on this occasion is that council officers, it's effectively B2C, and even more than B2C is what I would call a hidden audience. We call them hidden audience in marketing, because you don't have a direct access to them. They are very unlikely to be on LinkedIn. And if they are on LinkedIn, they are probably not particularly active. So the question here, it's not so much an AI answer, it's more of a marketing answer, which is we want to identify who might have access to them. So there are two things. So what you can do, I would suggest, Liz, is to go into Claude or ChatGPT and say, this is what I'm looking to do. It's perfectly fine to say that this is your audience. You're not sharing any personal private data, and say, I'd like to explore, do a 360 scan and see which organizations may have access to these people. And on this occasion, I would also suggest, as a little tip for prompting, is you can always ask me if you need clarifications. So add this to your prompting, because ChatGPT doesn't do that. Claude, on the other hand, does, which is one of the reasons why I like it quite a bit. It gives you the answer and says, well, before I go into that, can you explain this, Celia? I think, yes, that's what I want. That's the collaborative approach. ChatGPT, however, doesn't do that. So you have to remind yourself to add it onto your prompting. And so I would say scan. And the other thing I would say, Liz, is that we want to be thinking to narrow down your audience. Officers of councils is very, very broad. So perhaps you already have an idea. New managers, new directors, a particular department, perhaps you are looking to talk to. So trying to find qualifiers. This conversation, this part of the brainstorming, you can do with AI, which is also very valuable and productive. So finally, I'm going to wrap up with the things to focus on for this month. So here it goes. If you are brand new and haven't touched the tools, this is your urgent invitation to start doing so as of today. Watch this video, go straight, register with ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can't get it wrong. And start playing around. That's your number one. If you have been playing around on a weekly basis, now your objective is to aim to use AI in your daily workflow. It's not going to happen from one day to the other, but by the end of October, it's the 1st of October today, by the end of October, you can achieve that. So you can start doing that by creating the first meeting workflow that I've suggested earlier in the webinar. So your objective would be by the end of October, and you have 4 weeks to do that, create it, test it, implement it, and then record how much time it saves you. In November, if you've done this, then the next step in November will be to build a custom GPT. Create something, pick up something repetitive and create a unique little program to help you. And from your prospecting engine, we looked at the workflow. There was quite a lot there. Pick one area and start working on that. So let's say you want to be looking and understanding your prospects' business environment, sector, industries. What are the pain points they might be facing? Dive into perplexity. Start there. Don't try to do everything. Pick one, understand it, and then move to the next one. And as Forbes, you were saying very much, is that we do have to test. So this is the flow, the process we go through. We learn, we build, we create, we test, we review and optimize. So always one problem, one experiment, play for curiosity, remember, one metric, 1 week. And I will book myself in terms of things to allocate time to learn AI. So these are the things we talked about today. We talked about the big mistakes, shiny object, looking for the answer, or just the work slope. Let's avoid all of these things. We talked about the three operating principles of the AI mindset: playful curiosity, grounded optimism, and always, always human-led. Discuss the workflows, GPTs, and what are the next steps for the end of the year. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much, Celia. I think, again, wonderful, and it's very, very constructive elements here for the listeners and viewers to follow with this. I would always just keep echoing this thing, is that there's a lot of noise outside, and we hear a lot of views about AI is going to do this, AI is going to do that. And this is from people who have been eating and breathing it for a very, very long time. They're very positive about this, and there are genuine things which can really help our day-to-day productivity. The rest of us mortals, we need to kind of play catch up with this, and just, it's not, it will incrementally change and improve things. And I think everything about this is like kind of consumer confidence in the economy at the moment. It's just us kind of realizing this is a different way, this is a new way of learning and gaining information. It's like when the yellow pages, for those who are of a certain age, would come back, there's a whole ton of yellow pages, you thumb through the information. This is just the fast-track digital way of doing these things. And I think it's just start on something small, start on something which you think, can it do this? And you'll be amazed that probably it can. But just do something small, get that confidence in yourself, rather than thinking, right, I'm going to be really ambitious, because it'll probably do your little head in. Start somewhere small, incrementally get that confidence and that awareness. And I think you will develop this kind of little two-way relationship. You'll think, I can do this, and it can do me more. The one thing which I'll end on this, because I'm conscious everybody's listening to it, and I thought this was a really, really fascinating conversation which I heard, and I should have mentioned this the first time. So there was this researcher, high academic research, was talking about something. He'd spent 3 years on his research document. He hadn't shown it to anybody else. He'd come to the end conclusion of X, Y, Z, but he had finished it. And he showed it to some of his contemporaries, and they sort of said, do you know what? You've not shown this to the world. You've not shown this to any other research body. Put it into AI. I can't remember which platform they said, and just see what the outcomes, what it may come out with. And so basically they asked it, are there other variations of my end results of the 3 years that it could reveal or show or indicate? Maybe yes, maybe no, maybe in progress. And so he put the information in. He got guidance how to put the information in his research document. Within 3 days, it came back and said, yes, your outcomes we agree with. But have you thought of this, this, and this? And he looked at it and he went, darn me, that makes sense. Those I can relate to. And I can't remember, I don't know if the man must have cried or what he did after 3 years, but it validated his work. But within that short period of time, it sort of said, maybe this or maybe that. But because he had the knowledge, he could look at that and say, there is a line of a journey here which could be pursued. So it was an aid. So he could absorb that, and he could, but it's fascinating that from that sphere of academia, and he could sort of, he had the modesty and the humility to actually put that in. He had the knowledge to know, okay, that's the feedback. And so it was an interesting dialogue, and it was an add-on to what he was doing. And I think it's, yeah, so I think all of this is really a question of that little bit of confidence of actually saying, do you know what, could this do what we need it to do? And I think these days we are all looking for little steps which can help us progress with our business. It's not the answer to everything, as Celia said. It's not going to solve your marketing plans overnight, but it might just give you those little triggers which you just go, aha, I hadn't thought of that, or it gets you somewhere a little bit quicker and faster. So I think Celia is great with this in terms of just enjoy this, and then, but just do keep questioning it though, because you do need to have that little kind of relationship with it where you do sort of, are you sure, is this right? What about this? Give me an alternative. Just converse with it. But I'm waffling again. But thank you so much, Celia.
It's my pleasure, and I love the example. Let's not wait 3 years. Let's start today.
Yes. I don't know if this poor research chap has gone into therapy for the rest of his life.
I suspect he might.
He might have done. I'm going to be struck down by lightning now. Anyway, thank you very much, Celia. And
My pleasure.
we'll speak to you soon. And as
bye,
you said
everyone.
before, we'll share Celia's slides. And if there's some feedback, I'm sure Celia will be delighted to listen to you and just give some further thoughts and guidance. Lovely.
Yeah.
And I'll press the record button to stop now. Thank you. Bye.